Tech. Welcome to Springhill News. And this week's show, we're going to talk about a new city that we're visiting, Houston, with my co-workers.
Hi, I'm Axel. I'm going to talk about the communication.
Hi, I'm Eduardo, and I'm going to talk about DNA.
Hi, my name is Madera, and I'm going to talk about medicine.
And I'm going to talk about science and technology. Let's begin.
My name is Luis, and well, I'm going to talk about science and technology. When someone asks me what is science and technology, well, from my point of view and my knowledge, I can say that science is a branch of humanity in which it tries to explain everything around us. For example, how we're able to walk, to eat, to learn something, and I can go on and on and on about it. On the other hand, technology is the invention of humanity. Normally, that can help the human race, to the environment, progress in science, or even cause chaos. On our first trip in Houston, we went to the Museum of Natural Science. In that museum, we were able to gain an understanding of the most popular branches of science. For example, how technology helped us to get energy from the water, the sun, combining hydrogen, and more and more and more and more. Also, we discovered that technology can also be harmful. For instance, people use cyanide to kill people and gain power at the cost of lives.
In the first day, we went to the Houston Museum of Natural Science. And of course, every museum communicates something. In this case, it can be biology, how some animals live, how they interact with their ecosystem, etc., which helps us to be empathic with the flora and fauna of our world, thus to understand that the Earth needs our help. Also, in the little documentary that we saw, it mainly communicates the willingness of dogs to help people and be daily life heroes. Thanks to how well the museum communicates this aspect, among others, we can help the world thrive.
In our second day, we went to the Health Museum. Over there, we were able to learn the branch of science that specializes in medicine. We comprehend how important it is the branch of humanity. For example, for the reason that without it, our life expectancy will be significantly decreased. Thanks to medicine, we are able to create a high-quality crops that can adapt to almost every environment. Cure diseases that in the past were almost guaranteed 100% dead. Also, we became aware of the technology can experience diseases. But how? Well, because of people share rewarding information about it and can create negligence, and after that come disagreements, and the result will be catastrophic if the misleading information is not stopped.
Second day, we went to the Health Museum. As in the first museum, this one looks to communicate some aspects of how humans are made. We made some activities to understand this. First, we went to a lab, we made some practices like DNA extraction, saliva, something about blood, etc. And we also made an activity to extract our own DNA. But for me, the most interesting one was the one about the eye. We learned how the eye is made and how some animals' eye is made, for example the cow, and we learned some differences about it. And of course, well, it was a very creative way to communicate this and a very interesting one, and it helped us to understand more about our life. And well, to cap it off, there was an interactive part to communicate to us in a creative way more about our own body, how high we can jump, how far can we stretch, etc.
There are hundreds of discoveries that have marked the history of medicine, but only a few have marked an before and an after in the history of humanity. Like antiviral drugs, organ transplants, penicillin, medical imaging, anesthesia, and the discovery of the DNA. And it is in the DNA chain when the whole genetic code of an organism is found. At the Health Museum, we learned to be able to extract our own DNA through saliva. DNA is gradually present in our lives. Genetic analyses are requested more frequently by our doctors to know the origin of our diseases and, in some cases, to carry out customized therapies based on our genetic profile. Life expectancy is the key for assessing population health. Life expectancy has increased rapidly since the age of enlightenment. Good health in the rich countries and bad health in those countries that remain poor. All this could be observed in the museum and related since, as we see in this poster, vaccines prevent viruses from appearing, They cause common infectious diseases, such as common cold, the flu, and warts. They also cause serious diseases such as HIV, smallpox, and Ebola, and impair the life expectancy of a community. HIV is a virus that attacks the immune system, our body's natural defense against illness. AIDS is a set of symptoms by HIV. This is the last stage of HIV when the infection is very advanced and if left untreated will lead to death. Cancer begins in the cells and is not just one disease but several. There are more than 100 types of cancer. Most of these are named by their place of origin. Symptoms and treatment depend on the type of cancer and how advanced the disease is. Most treatments include surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy. Applied neurotechnology allows us to connect our brain with external devices like wheelchair, for example, that move according to our brain activity. Human intelligence revolves around adaptation to the environment using a combination of several cognitive processes. The field of artificial intelligence focuses on designing machines that can mimic human behavior. However, some researchers believe that strong artificial intelligence is never possible due to this difference between the human brain and a computer. Thank you, and let's go with my coworker.
Thank you. I got more things to teach you about. We're also going to talk about genetic engineering, and let's start with what is it? Well, genetic engineering refers to the fact of directly altering someone's or something's DNA to improve its life expectancies or just its life in general, like plants, animals, and obviously even humans. Genetic engineering can develop into various areas, from manipulating an organism's DNA to improve their survival conditions, or just use it as a tool to improve someone's health. One example of this is the usage of CRISPR-Cas, that is using genetics engineering to cut DNA and change or add parts to the subject's chain DNA. As we saw on day 2, extracting DNA was an easy task. We just had to put some soap into our spit and then add alcohol to separate it. But the difficult part comes when we need to directly alter it. But if we succeed to do that, we can make the subject stronger and more resilient to everything in their environment. For DNA altering, we have two main examples. The first one is plant breeding. This means that we change the plant's DNA to make them stronger and more resilient to their environment. This can cause that they can flower even when it's not their season. We achieve this by inserting traits of other plants into their DNA, and that's what makes them stronger. For animal breeding, we tend to make them stronger or bigger for our needs. You know, like we do with cows, we make them fat, or with chickens, we make them bigger, but that's just for what we need. But they also last longer and they are healthier. In day 2, we also had the opportunity to use laboratory equipment to look more deeply into our own cells. This gave us the chance to relate what we were watching with some information we already had prepared for you back at home. As we know, cells make up our body, but there's a specific type of cell that amazes us all. It's called stem cell. But what is a stem cell? Well, stem cell is a very, very important cell in our body. It has two main works. The first one is to produce more stem cells, and the second one is to replace any kind of cell that has been damaged in our body. It can be a blood cell, it can be a tissue cell, it can even be a neuron, and that's amazing. Even though genetic engineering has helped us all, it's not always seen as a good thing, because altering DNA makes it easier to create something specifically as someone wants to. And that can take us back to Hitler and how he wanted everyone to be just Aryan blood. But let's not focus on that. We may or may not have problems altering DNA and making a perfect being. But we will tend and we will continue to use it for our improvement and our health improvement and any organism such as plants or animals' health. And last but not least, we also have genetic therapy. What's this? Well, it's just altering DNA to improve our health. We have some mutation in our DNA that's giving us a chronological disorder, disease, and, well, we just attack it or change it directly in the DNA, and that's it. But hey, thanks for listening to Generics Engineering part.
On our third trip, we went to the Holocaust Museum. While there, we were given the opportunity to digest the horrors that happened during the age of World War II. In the tour, we saw all the perspective of the people that were damaged during the period. Well, mostly the Jews. And we were taught that Germans created the process for killing people, torture them, and make them suffer. That is just horrible. Nevertheless, technology did improve all those years. For example, without the war, the moon landing would never happen, because the German scientist was one significant factor for discovery and the progress of rockets. Thank you.
And well, in the third day, we went to the Holocaust Museum. And for us, the most important expression of communication we've had and that we will have throughout the trip. The museum wanted to communicate the dangers of hate, of having an attitude of, meh, whatever, I don't care, of making the others less. And it did it perfectly. With a little pep talk with the Holocaust survivor and the guided tour in the museum, we understood this danger, and it made us realize how people suffered in World War II. And we also visited the aquarium that day, which communicated to us the unseen face of it, how they manage the tanks, how they feed the animals, and so on. And well, with these 3 visits, we can see how communication has evolved and how it helps us nowadays to understand basically everything.